whatever side you're on, both sides should be angry at Stephanie Jones for starting this mess in the first place. And now Justin, thankfully, along with Jennifer Abel, are suing his former publicist, Stephanie Jones. Stephanie Jones initiated this catastrophic sequence of events.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are now in the worst kind of PR nightmare after Justin Baldoni sued his ex-publicist, who just so happened to be cashing shady checks from their corner.
A lot in Hollywood are afraid of that Stephanie was doing all this to massage and get her way.
That's right. Stephanie Jones was hired to protect Baldoni's secrets, not auction them off to Team Blake like a clearance sale. But Baldoni's not bluffing. He brought receipts, and it's getting real ugly, real fast.
Jones had become noticeably more paranoid, erratic, and cruel in recent years.
Stephanie Jones has built a reputation in Hollywood as someone you don't want to cross. As the CEO of JonesWorks PR, she's operated with intimidation, manipulation, and a pattern of erratic control. Her client list reads like a power index: Dwayne Johnson, Jeff Bezos, Tom Brady, and most recently, Blake Lively. But behind the polished branding and media spin is a woman known for yas.
I don't think there was one day in the office that someone wasn't crying.
Former employees have described a workplace ruled by fear, where staff regularly cried at their desks, and where Jones allegedly FaceTimed sick employees, even someone attending a funeral, to confirm they weren't lying. She didn't just push boundaries, she shattered them.
And now Justin, thankfully, along with Jennifer Abel, are suing his former publicist, Stephanie Jones, alleging that she maliciously leaked texts that sparked the legal battle with Blake Lively.
She's also been accused of creating fake social media accounts to troll former staff and journalists. Even respected reporters like Matt Belloni from Puck News weren't spared. In one of the most disturbing claims, Jones allegedly told her team, based on a psychic reading, that her senior staffer Jennifer Ale was an alcoholic and a gambling addict.
It's undeniable that Stephanie Jones initiated this catastrophic sequence of events by violating the most basic of privacy rights, as well as any remaining trust her clients held.
The claim was entirely false, but it was repeated publicly in the office. Another time, she reportedly said the same psychic predicted AL would be pregnant with twins, despite AL's known fertility struggles. This wasn't just toxic leadership. It was personal, calculated humiliation.
Miss Jones maliciously turned over communications from the phone.
Stephanie's downfall started when she was fired for cause by Wayfair Studios. But she didn't leave quietly. Within days, she flipped sides, allegedly stealing Jennifer Ale's phone and confidential communications.
She wrongfully took from her own partner to her cohort, Lively's personal publicist, Leslie Sloan.
That same day, she delivered those stolen texts and emails straight into the hands of Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively's personal publicist. It wasn't a leak. It was a weaponized data handoff.
Immediately after Jones was terminated for cause by Wayfair due to her own wrongful behavior. So basically, yeah, Stephanie Jones is fired by Wayfair. She's there defending Justin against Blake in the early days of the PR battle, the retaliation campaign.
And it all happened on August 21st, 2020, just 2 days before her scheduled departure from JonesWorks. Jennifer Ale walked into what she thought was a normal day at the office. Instead, she was confronted by a carefully orchestrated trap. In the Beverly Hills branch of JonesWorks, she was ushered into a conference room where a security guard stood between her and the exit. Seated at the table were a forensic data extraction technician and a company lawyer. This wasn't an exit interview, it was an ambush.
Stephanie Jones was part of it. And so now suddenly Stephanie Jones switches teams and gets this phone from Jennifer Abel, which we're going to go through more of the specifics that are alleged in here, and then immediately gives it over to Blake's publicist, Leslie Sloan.
Under intense pressure and with no legal counsel of her own present, Ale was coerced into surrendering both her company-issued laptop and her mobile phone, one that carried her personal phone number since high school.
And then there's texts and calls where Melissa's being called saying, yeah, I have your phone. We have your friend's phone. We have all the information. Ha ha ha. How is this legal? How is this allowed? And was there actually a subpoena that the New York Times says there was when they got this phone?
According to her federal countersuit, AL made it clear that the number was tied to her iCloud, bank accounts, email, insurance, and virtually all of her two-factor authentication. Jones's chief of staff verbally promised the number would be ported over to her once the transition was complete.
She's a scary figure that, as previously reported, a lot in Hollywood are afraid of. But let's go there. I need your help. Let's go there. And I hope my fellow sleuths out there.
That promise was a lie. After handing over the phone, AL went straight to a Verizon store. She spent nearly 4 hours there waiting for Jones Works to release the number as promised. No one ever did. The chief of staff stopped responding to her calls.
Her and employees alike were all extremely tight-lipped and fearful of engaging in any sort of discussion about their experience with Jones Works. So
the number was never released. Overnight, AL was locked out of every critical service in her life: her bank, her health insurance, her personal files, even her communication with family and friends. Her digital identity had been stolen by her own employer.
Jones was obsessed with Baldoni, and particularly Abel witnessed Jones working with journalists to plant and contribute to negative stories about former clients who had fired Jones Works and Jones.
Even more alarming is AL's claim that Jones still possesses her private data to this day. That includes photos, messages, and confidential client communications. She fears further leaks, especially given Jones's established history of retaliation and manipulation. Her lawsuit outlines how she now lives under the constant threat that any part of her personal information could be used against her.
It's clear Friedman's paying attention and throwing those bones out to make sure that everybody, that's Blake's team sees who they're helping and aligning with. So again,
this wasn't just corporate overreach. It could be criminal. The countersuit details how AL was allegedly forced to sign exit documents under duress while the security guard stood watch. With her ability to leave physically restricted and the pressure of legal threats looming, her attorneys argue this was textbook false imprisonment.
All of that violates California labor laws, according to Abel's employment, according to the lawsuit, which makes, honestly, a lot of sense. It's like absolutely bonkers that they were able to do this.
According to California law, even temporary physical restraint under coercion, especially when tied to the surrender of property or rights, qualifies as a serious violation. This incident wasn't just about a phone. It was about power, control, and intimidation on an institutional level.
Paranoid, erratic, and cruel in recent years, shed light on the toxic workplace she had fostered at Jones Works, and regularly would turn on deafening music so that she could berate her employees free from scrutiny. I don't think there was one day in the office that someone wasn't crying.
But what makes this situation more sinister is that it wasn't isolated. According to multiple witness declarations, this was a pattern for Stephanie Jones. Jones didn't just fire AL and walk away. She weaponized the contents of that stolen phone within hours.
Released her personal cell phone number, which would enable Jones Work to take possession of the physical device without gaining unrestrained access to its content. Again, so frustrating.
The same day AL's phone was seized, August 21st, 2024, Jones allegedly sent its contents to Blake Lively's longtime publicist, Leslie Sloan. What followed was a coordinated campaign to paint Wayfarer Studios and Justin Baldoni as the source of negative press surrounding It Ends With Us.
Melissa Nathan claims that Leslie Sloan calls her. We have call logs here coming in from previous documents that talked about this. Melissa Nathan is now suddenly called by Leslie Sloan, who gets information that clearly she only would have gotten from Jennifer Abel's phone.
Texts from the phone were sliced and diced, presented out of context, and used by Lively's team to confront Melissa Nathan, another Jones Works employee. The speed of the chain reaction confirms this wasn't reactive. It was premeditated. This isn't the first time Stephanie Jones has been accused of sabotaging people on the way out.
And was there actually a subpoena that the New York Times says there was when they got this phone? Those are all the questions being asked, and I want to go through. We're going to try and do a quick summary of this.
According to the countersuit filed in New York federal court, AL was warned by industry insiders before joining Jones Works that Jones had a well-deserved reputation for treating people horribly and retaliating against those who left. She had recently been accused of stealing clients from a rival PR firm and using deceptive and unscrupulous methods. That pattern repeated with AL, but on a much more invasive scale.
She set out to take revenge on Abel, Wayfair, Baldoni, and Nathan exploiting the data that she had unlawfully accessed and stolen from Abel's phone. So,
after being fired by Wayfarer in mid-2024 for breach of contract, Jones immediately sought revenge. Her actions were far from subtle. She began working behind the scenes to reposition herself as an asset to Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, offering up Ailes' stolen communications as a way to win favor.
2 days before her last day on August 21st, right at the end of all the bad press that Blake's facing, she arrives in the office where she's confronted by a physically imposing security guard, forensic data extraction technical expert, and an attorney, all at a conference table awash in documents.
According to paragraph 97 of Ailes' cross-complaint, Jones turned over the contents of Abel's phone to Lively and her team without a subpoena so they could slice and dice her communications to construct a false narrative about the source of Lively's bad publicity.
Attorney stated that Jonesworks suspected Abel had retained proprietary information on her laptop. Abel was told that Jonesworks would have grounds to sue if she'd not allow them access. Note here, Abel, clearly very naive. You should have let them sue you.
This statement, made on information and belief, is backed by the timing, the messaging chain, and the retaliatory actions taken by Lively's team immediately afterward. Jones's reach in the entertainment industry is further complicated by her personal connections.
Stephanie Jones is married to a senior partner at WME. His name is Jason Hodes. WME is the, talent agency that reps Lively and Ryan Reynolds.
She is married to Jason Hodes, a senior executive at WME, the very agency representing both Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. According to the court filings, Hodes even texted Jennifer Ailes' fiancé after her resignation in an effort to convince her to stay at the firm.
What the heck is going on? These people are like so connected.
It's a very tight community up top. By the way, Melanie King, enjoy your work on this stuff, and I appreciate everything you've been putting out.
This level of involvement is unusual for a talent executive and suggests deeper coordination. Legal analysts reviewing the case argue this link between Jones and WME may have influenced how aggressively Lively's team acted on the materials provided.
What if there was text between Stephanie Jones' husband and Ari Emanuel about Baldoni and this whole mess? I mean, that would not be privilege. That'd be something that you could get a hold of through a subpoena.
Jones also had direct relationships with media outlets. Emails and messages reviewed in the legal filings show that she maintained communication with journalists and PR handlers long after being removed from Wayfarer's accounts. She allegedly bypassed both Wayfarer and Sony's internal teams to pitch stories and provide background, further escalating tensions in a media environment already hostile to Lively's film.
Who knows what documents are out there? There's a universe of documents that people are still getting, and there's going to be some very happy people as those documents are disclosed, and there'll be some very sad people.
And according to filings from Wayfarer, Jones wasn't even authorized to act on behalf of the company at the time. Yet she inserted herself directly into promotional conversations and media interactions, often undermining the work her own team had been doing. When challenged, she reportedly told Wayfarer executives she would do what she wants, a comment documented in paragraph 90 of AL's legal filings.
So is that Jennifer Abel's own lawsuit against Stephanie Jones?
That's right. It's their own lawsuit against Stephanie Jones. It's what we call a countersuit.
The sabotage wasn't accidental. It wasn't an emotional overreaction. This was a calculated, methodical effort to destroy reputations, mislead the press, and preserve her own power, regardless of the collateral damage. And the fact that this damage is tied directly to stolen data, coordinated media manipulation, and industry ties reaching all the way to Blake and Ryan's inner circle has made this case one of the most disturbing legal unravelings in recent Hollywood memory.
California law gave such protections to Blake Lively under 47.1 of the Cal Civil Code, but we're going to see that California law gives every employee.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' legal strategy has been dissected in headlines, but very few grasp how fatally flawed their opening moves were. In what experts now call a catastrophic miscalculation, they chose to sue individual employees, Jennifer Ale and Melissa Nathan, rather than the actual PR firm responsible for the leaks, Jonesworks.
So you're going to see that Brian Friedman is actually going to be effectively arguing that California law should apply here, and he likes California law, and we're going to find out why in just a minute.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a legal oversight. It was a decision that exposed Lively and Reynolds to massive counterclaims, all while leaving Stephanie Jones, the CEO of Jones Works and the person directly responsible for the phone seizure and data leaks, completely untouched in their filings. According to public court records in the Southern District of New York, the defamation and interference claims were targeted at AL and Nathan personally, with no mention of Jones Works as a liable corporate entity. The result? AL was able to countersue with full force, invoking California labor protections that completely flipped the narrative.
Everything confidential.
Right.
But now their allegations are going to be, but she didn't hold herself to that same standard.
Even though she had an agreement to keep all of Wayfair's information confidential.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, the couple tried to distance themselves from the core controversy. Reynolds' legal filings stated that he had no direct involvement with It Ends With Us, neither in production nor promotion. But that claim didn't age well. Several interviews leading up to the release featured Blake openly stating that Ryan helped rewrite some scenes, including an appearance on The Kelly Clarkson Show in March 2020. This contradicted their sworn statements and immediately drew scrutiny from media watchdogs.
Everything confidential.
Right.
But now their allegations are going to be, but she didn't hold herself to that same standard.
Even though she had an agreement to keep all of Wayfair's information confidential.
Yeah. So, I kind of felt like they were trying to show the juxtaposition of what Abel was required to do under the contract. Well, what about Stephanie Jones? Why didn't she do these things? So I think that was kind of what I got out of these allegations.
More damning were the emails disclosed by Wayfarer Studios, which confirmed that Ryan's marketing firm, Maximum Effort, was consulted multiple times for branding and rollout coordination. Internal correspondence dated June 2020, just 2 months before the PR disaster peaked, showed Maximum Effort team members reviewing digital assets and offering notes. The emails were part of a broader complaint filed by Wayfarer against Jones Works, which attached screenshots of those communications.
California law is really good for employees. And back in 2019, California legislature, in its infinite wisdom, decided that independent contractors would be covered under the FEHA. It's F-E-H-A. It's our applicable law to Title VII.
Adding to the chaos were Blake and Ryan's awkward press appearances during the early backlash. On July 29, 2024, at the film's Manhattan premiere, Blake was visibly uncomfortable answering questions about the film's social media fallout. A red carpet interview with Entertainment Tonight included vague statements about misinformation and bad actors, without naming names. Critics quickly pointed out the evasiveness, fueling online speculation that Blake was aware of the internal PR mess and trying to deflect.
So they could slice and dice their communications to construct a false narrative about the source of Lively's bad publicity. That's clutch right there.
Public sentiment soured fast. What started as skepticism around Blake's casting turned into outright hostility when reports emerged that former insiders were being sued and publicly humiliated. Commentators like Andy Signor Popcorn Planet called the lawsuit campaign a textbook case of weaponized litigation, where former collaborators were being targeted to protect a failing narrative. Instead of appearing as victims of sabotage, Lively and Reynolds were now seen as aggressors.
Jones's malicious scheme, Abel's life has been turned upside down, her career and reputation have been destroyed, her private information leaked, her email inbox, social media pages filled with daily stream of death threats, etc. Backlash against Wayfair, as we know, equally devastating.
Jennifer Ailes' legal team took full advantage of this shift by going all in on California law. In September 2024, Ailes' attorneys filed a countersuit invoking California Labor Code, SARI 925, and Business and Professions Code, FERR 16069. Section 9 specifically protects employees from being forced to adjudicate disputes in out-of-state courts when their work was performed primarily in California.
California law on page 42, because California actually has a labor code, section 925, that specifically talks about whether or not these type of contracts are enforceable and whether they can be enforced against an employee.
AL, who had been operating out of Jones Works' Los Angeles office for California-based clients like Wayfarer, fell squarely within this protection. Paragraph 36 of her countersuit lays it out clearly. Her employment contracts from both 2020 and 2020 included illegal non-compete clauses, extensive non-solicitation restrictions, and overly broad confidentiality demands, all of which are unenforceable under California law.
How this works, because California has a strong public policy that we don't want employees to be locked into contracts that do certain things. And you can see under A there's two things that an employment contract cannot do. It can't require the employee to adjudicate outside of California for a claim arising in California, and it can't deprive the employee of the substantive protection of California law.
25 allows such contracts to be declared void ab initio, meaning invalid from the very beginning. AEL not only invoked her right to void the contracts, but also demanded reasonable attorney's fees, which the court may award under subsection C of the statute. She didn't stop there. Her legal filing includes multiple tort-based claims: false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress, and invasion of privacy.
This past summer, Abel pulls up to Jones' work in Beverly Hills, their LA office, and she's confronted. Brian Friedman talks about it, the physically imposing security guard. There's a forensic data extraction technical expert, and there's even an attorney at a conference room table awash with documents. I mean,
these stem directly from the August 21st ambush in Beverly Hills, where she was cornered, stripped of her devices, and allegedly forced to sign paperwork under duress. The claim for false imprisonment alone is supported by the presence of a private security guard physically blocking her exit during the device handover. Her team argues that this act alone created unlawful confinement, an essential element under California Civil Code.
Abel notices that the security guard is being placed between the door where she can leave and where she is in the conference room. And it just, it's a big imposing security guard. To her it is, and she just feels threatened, and she's not feeling good about this.
Another devastating claim is invasion of privacy. Paragraph 66 of AEL's counter-complaint alleges that Stephanie Jones unlawfully accessed, copied, and disseminated private data from AEL's phone, including texts and emails. The breach becomes especially egregious given that AEL's phone held both personal and client communications, some of which involved sensitive PR matters for Wayfarer, Sony, and other partners.
But definitely, she apparently felt intimidated, and I don't blame her. So it's within that meeting where they have her sign a bunch of documents, and they demand to search her laptop because they claim that she took documents she shouldn't have taken. And
they don't find anything on the laptop.
Despite being subject to a strict confidentiality clause herself, Jones had no issue leaking those very communications to Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, as confirmed by AEL in paragraph 92 of the filing. The hypocrisy could not be more blatant. Jones required her employees to follow confidentiality rules to the letter. In the 2020 employment contract, confidentiality was defined so broadly that it even covered non-public internal workflow methods and staff structures. Yet Jones herself, in a documented violation, leaked client and employee data without consent or legal authority. No subpoena was issued. No court order demanded disclosure. And according to legal experts, that could qualify as both a civil and potentially criminal breach of California's strict data protection rules.
I wanted to know if we have the same environment, but apparently at Jones' work, there wasn't a day that would go by in the office that someone wasn't crying.
Yeah.
And I asked producer Eric, is there any crying going on around the office here? I want to make sure we're not having a Jones work environment here.
If AEL succeeds in court, Jones Works, and by extension Jones herself, could be forced to pay compensatory damages, legal costs, and face reputational damage that could sink the firm entirely. Multiple ex-employees are reportedly considering coming forward with additional testimony, including one who allegedly holds video footage of Jones screaming at staff inside the LA office. The toxic culture, once whispered about, now has legal teeth behind it.
New York is a liberal state. I'm sure there's similar protections up there. But
meanwhile, Lively and Reynolds find themselves tethered to this implosion, both by association and, in Ryan's case, by contradictory filings. They made the mistake of trying to control a narrative by cutting down employees who were likely acting under orders. Instead of challenging the source of the misconduct, Stephanie Jones, they protected her, empowered her, and let her run the table.
No, that's over the top. I mean, nobody would like that.
Now the table's turning. Multiple industry insiders, including former Jones Works employees and former clients, are reportedly sitting on evidence of misconduct but refuse to speak on record. The reason is consistent across the board: retaliation. Some allege they've witnessed Jones use fake social media accounts to troll ex-staffers.
There, right? But it sounds like it was procured in a bad manner. But this isn't like fruit of the poisonous tree in a criminal case where it was produced without reading, the criminal their rights, and therefore you can't use it at all.
Others claim she directly contacted media outlets like Puck News to plant negative pieces on departing clients or former collaborators. According to at least 2 anonymous sources cited in internal court communications, Jones has a long-standing reputation for going scorched earth on anyone she deems disloyal.
The statements he makes in this declaration, which we're about to look at, he makes them under penalty of perjury, meaning he can be beat up with these later in deposition and at court. And you don't normally see, like Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, nobody's coming out putting declarations out right now because they can be.
One person who didn't stay silent was Jed Wallace, a crisis consultant who found himself named in Blake Lively's legal complaint. Wallace filed a declaration under penalty of perjury in October 2024, denying every single accusation made against him. He stated he never ran a digital smear campaign, never manipulated social platforms, and never operated any kind of social combat plan, a phrase Blake's team used in court filings. Instead, Wallace said he was hired by Melissa Nathan simply to monitor sentiment, nothing more.
Jones was not around as far as Wayfair was concerned, according to these allegations.
And then she kind of reinserts herself while on a vacation in Europe, according to the pleadings here.
In his sworn statement, Wallace revealed that his company, Street Relations, specializes in crisis mitigation for trauma victims. He also noted that he never directed or paid anyone to post content about Blake, Ryan, Wayfarer, or Justin Baldoni. Most strikingly, Wallace explicitly stated in paragraph 21 of his declaration, "I do not have a digital army in Los Angeles, New York, or anywhere else." He called the entire narrative constructed by Lively's team inaccurate and misrepresentative. The implications were clear. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a coordinated deflection.
I'm on page 58. So Jones now inserts herself into the mix in early August 2024, and they say the problem, however, was that Jones had chosen not to be privy to Wayfair leadership's communication strategy or internal decision-making. So she didn't know what was going on. And one of the things that Jennifer Abel had worked out with Lively, or she thought she worked out with Lively, is that they were going to call a truce and nobody was going to try to talk to the media.
Beyond the individuals, this case opens the door to something much bigger: the systemic abuse of PR power in Hollywood. Jones isn't the only one accused of manipulating media coverage or planting misleading narratives. But her case is among the few with documented text messages, phone seizures, and witness testimony, all pointing to how weaponized PR actually operates behind closed doors. This is no longer speculative. It's evident.
But then Stephanie Jones comes in, according to these allegations, and starts talking to the media against the instructions of Wayfair and the leadership at Wayfair. And
Didn't
so
Jamie Heath say something to her in an email very kindly? Hey, butt out. We don't need your help. We're happy with what Jen Abel's doing for us.
The lawsuit also exposes how easy it is for public figures to deflect accountability by pushing blame downward. Instead of addressing Jones Works' role in leaking private data, Blake Lively's legal team chose to sue Jennifer Ale and Melissa Nathan, employees with far less institutional power. Ale's texts were taken without a subpoena. Nathan was threatened based on the content of those texts. Both became scapegoats, while Jones remained publicly unchallenged by Lively or Reynolds. That choice wasn't accidental, It was strategic.
Thinking that Wayfair had instructed Jones to do this when in fact they had not. And you can see that on paragraph 88.
The bigger question now facing Hollywood is whether this is finally the moment of reckoning. The entertainment industry has long relied on strategic PR to spin stories, silence insiders, and protect powerful players. But as more documents leak and legal filings stack up, the industry's default mode of operating in secrecy is becoming harder to defend. Every new court motion brings more receipts. Every ignored ND becomes a liability. And every high-profile silence now feels like complicity. And it's far from over. If you want to stay updated, don't forget to hit subscribe and drop your insights below if you want us to cover something special